Hello. Welcome in, everybody. Traditional stream today. Thank you for those of you guys who are already here early. Welcome in, Ash Day. Woohoo. First one in. And Ghost Poncho, how you doing? Hey, Snowblood and Scream and Chris. Our lovely Joanne. Lovely Maud. Say thank you to Joanne, who keeps us all in line and answers all your amazing questions. Welcome in. Hey, Quinn. Quinn, we are going to save Walter White for the end. So Quinn is one of our lovely Patreon members who has begged me to draw Walter White. So I'm going to save him for the end of the stream. And yeah, I'm glad you're able to catch a stream. Welcome in. I hope you guys are having a really great Saturday so far. These are some mystery celebs that I have lined up. Some of these were chosen by our audience in the poll. So if you can identify any of these celebrities, let me know. It's going to be a mystery challenge. Identify these celebs. Hello, Broken Wing Zeal. Welcome in, one of our lovely students. And the Cube Man, yay, you made it. Hello, Mohammed and Floppy Cat, Lycan Arts. Amena. Lots of new names today. That's awesome. What medium am I using? So today I will be using just pencil on paper. And then I will also be drawing on some toned paper. So I really, really love toned paper drawing. So if you want to draw along with me today, you can use whatever you want. You could just use a pencil. You can draw along digitally. And you can also use colored pencils. So this is kind of what I'm going to be drawing with. I have my pencil set. I have a mechanical pencil to take notes with because taking notes dulls my pencil, right? And then I've got a black and white colored pencil. They're Prismacolors just because I really like how silky and smooth they go on. And a hard eraser. Ashday, do you recognize, were you the one who requested, hold on, how do you say his name? Käärijä? Yeah, it is. You know what? I also got a lot of questions in the chat about how to draw hooded eyes. So I wanted to make sure that I included a variety of different people and different eye shapes. You know, eyes wearing makeup, eyes looking up, looking down, looking to the side. The 3/4 view, though, like this type of 3/4 view eye, like drawing both eyes together is what most people struggle with. So it's definitely something that I wanted to include. Yeah, so before we get started, if you didn't already know, let's go to our challenges. We have some challenges here, but oh, 1 second here. I wanted to go over the submissions, but before we start, if you didn't know, our mission at Wing Canvas is to make art education easily accessible to everyone. So you can tune in live for free lessons every weekend, Saturday and Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you didn't know, our growing community is filled with art nerds. And Wing Canvas is, whoops, let me turn off these. Wing Canvas is a school of illustration. And we're not just a YouTube channel, we are a school of illustration and it specifically for art nerds. So be sure to check out the links to our social media and check out our website for our class offerings where you can get critique, guidance, and encouragement from our instructors because we hold you accountable and give you critique that is super, super important for creative growth, right? So we're living in a modern age and you can learn so many things on your own, but it is really important to have guidance from professionals. So that's why we are here. And I want to personally thank our incredible Patreon and YouTube members who support us in making free art education content. So consider supporting us on Patreon to get tons of perks like exclusive chats with our creators and live critiques on Discord, class recordings, digital art, files from our streams, and discounts on live programs that have a limited amount of spots. So here are our membership perks. We will be updating the Patreon soon, but the best, I mean, some of our members here will tell you, but one of the best perks on Patreon is our live critiques. So let me just show you our critique hours here. So every creator here on the channel specializes in different things all related to illustration. So Jessie is, she's a comic artist, does digital illustration, and her office hours for patrons is 2 p.m. Eastern time every Wednesday. Iggy, who specializes in digital painting, is Mondays at 8 p.m. Josh, who does animation and character design, also does both traditional and digital art, Saturdays at 10 p.m. And my office hours are Fridays at 1 p.m. And so if you become a member once a week, we also have live critiques where you can submit your artwork and get feedback and draw overs from our creators. Okay, so those of you who are in the Patreon, thank you, Quinn. Quinn says 11 out of 10 would recommend. We love seeing our members improve and answering all of your burning questions, and if you just want to chat. Okay, so I'm going to catch up with the chat here. I was just going to ask if I could draw digitally, but never mind. Yes, absolutely. Draw with whatever you have. And is there a time where you can go over drawing closed eyes as well? Oh, okay, sure. I can write that down. Nice. So let's go on to submissions. Oh, thank you, Lycan Arts. Yeah, definitely join the Discord. It's amazing. Lots of free perks there. Even if you're not a member, we post all of our artwork from our live streams on the Discord. So definitely join that. You can get community feedback on your artwork too. Really, really helpful. The best community for art nerds. Definitely join our Discord. You can just find it at Wayne Canvas. Okay, so August is almost over, guys. There's one more stream, and then that's it. So you have until tonight to submit your artwork. I should say probably midday tomorrow to submit your artwork for the challenge. So this month's challenge is Show Me the Emotion. Lots of fun this month. Lots of great submissions. So it's always really hard to choose because there's just such a great range of artwork. But you can submit to the Discord for a chance to be featured on our stream. Okay, so the first one is by Office Man, and this is an angry orc, right? I think orcs are always angry. I would really be surprised to see like a goofy silly orc. But anyway, I think you did a really, really good job with this piece. Super well rendered, like really nice skin tones, painterly. I love the outer glow on the outside, which adds contrast to his face. And just overall, you did a beautiful job capturing the expression and the unique style of your character. Love this a lot. Thank you for submitting. And kudos to Office Man. All right, our next submission is by Heidi Geist. Yeah, nice piece. You know what? I really, really enjoy seeing expressions that are not, happy, sad, angry. I like seeing the more subtle expressions. So this one is, that kind of very subtle, longing, like the expression of longing, little bit maybe kind of like a whining. I see some tears welling up, but really great expression and very, very simple execution of this piece. Great job. And thank you for submitting. And this last piece is by Spark. And Spark, I was very moved by this piece. I believe in your description you said this is one of your D&D characters going through dialysis and experiencing a lot of pain, but didn't really want others to see their pain. So, you know, you can see that they're suffering. You've captured the expression really well in the hands as well, you know, because expressions don't just, they might start with the eyes, but they really are all throughout the body. If you have trouble drawing expressions and expressive poses, you can check out Jessie's live stream from 2 weeks ago, where she went over expressions and how it carries through to the body. So Spark, this was a really, really nice piece, and I was very moved by it. So I think you did a great job. And again, thanks for submitting. All right. Let's get into the lesson. So the poll, let me just show you guys the poll this week. Oh, let me move some things around here. There we go. Here we go. All right. So they say eyes are the window to the soul. So does that mean somebody is soulless if their eyes aren't drawn well? What is the number one thing that you struggle with when it comes to drawing eyes? And 40% of people said drawing eyes in difficult head angles. Drawing eyes in difficult head angles. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And our final demo, for our final demo, let me give you guys a sneak peek. To all of you guys who are here early, let me give you a sneak peek of who we're drawing for the final demo. So I've sourced Walter White. This is for you, Quinn. Kim Kardashian. And Jay-Z. So we probably don't have time for all three, but I think that these, I think Kim, this is a really, really difficult head angle. Like she's got her head tilting up. I didn't include the entire head because our focus is on the eyes, but I really like these like crazy eyes, like Kim Kardashian crazy eyes in a crazy angle. And crazy eyes, Walter White, also in a difficult head angle. So these are going to be, we're going to save these till the end because they're a bit more challenging. All right. Quinn says, yeah, it appears I was in the minority. Do you remember what you voted for? Because I thought that it would be something like capturing the likeness, because a lot of my students actually say, oh, you know, I don't have trouble drawing eyes, but I have trouble making it look like the person. So I honestly thought it would be capturing the likeness, but I'm not surprised that it's drawing eyes in difficult head angles. So yeah, if there's any other questions that you may have about drawing eyes, let me know in the chat. All right. Okay, so I thought we could start this stream with some common do's and don'ts. And then let me just kind of show you how I typically will draw eyes. Okay, so just adjusting my mic here. Here are my do's and my don'ts. Let's get out the good old ruler. If you want to make some notes with me, go ahead. Okay, so the common mistakes that I see when it comes to drawing eyes is drawing detailed eyes one at a time. drawing detailed eyes one at a time. Let me know if this is something that you do, because this is the most common mistake that I see people do, because what they do is, you know, they'll draw one eye, and then, you know, they go to draw another eye and it is off and it always looks kind of wonky. So what you do want to do is draw both eyes at the same time. So when I was in high school, I used to draw detailed eyes and I would only draw one. So you notice all these references here, there's two eyes, right? When I was in high school, I loved drawing celebrity eyes. It was like my favorite thing to do. So what I would do is I would just draw one eye and then I draw another eye, and they were only singles, right? And so the biggest thing I learned is it's easy to draw one eye. It's hard to draw both. And it's hard to draw both at the same time. I have some guesses here. Is number 3 Voldemort? That's a really good guess, but no, it's not. It is a good guess, though. Actually, number 3 was a request by one of our members in the poll, for the poll. They commented with their favorite celebs. QRZT says, I can't draw eyes at an angle. No problem. We are going to be covering that as well. One of my eyes looks incredible. The other, we don't talk about that one. Welcome in, Hearthling. Nice to see you. Yeah, I totally hear you on that one. So you want to draw both eyes at the same time. This is really, really crucial. My best tip for you today. Okay. So the other thing about, the other common thing that I see when people draw eyes is that they don't think of the eyeball or 3D, only 2D shapes. Okay, so if you don't think of the 2D, if you don't think of the 3D and you only think of the 2D, then what happens is, you know, you start drawing one eye, and then you know, like let's say one eye, I'm kind of looking at eye number 2 here. Okay, so let's say you draw in the shape and everything's great, and you know, but if you don't think about the eyeball, you won't be able to draw this eye very well when it's in a difficult direction. So what you want to do is you want to always draw in the ball so that you know exactly sort of where the corner of the eye is, and then also how to shade it, right? Because your eyes are actually 3D and not 2D, and they sit inside the socket. So what you want to do is you want to always visualize the eyeball and how it's positioned in the socket. Okay, so the eye socket. So if you think about a skull, right, the socket of a skull is kind of like this, right? And then the eyeball will fit into that socket. So it's really important to don't just think of the eyeball, but only don't think of just drawing shapes. Like 2D shapes is really important, right? But you always want to visualize the eyeball and how it's positioned inside the socket. Let's see here. I'm catching up with the chat. You draw one and then draw hair over the other one. Yeah, I've done that before too. Totally guilty of that one. The eyes I draw look like robot eyes. Okay, so that leads me to the third point. That's a really good point. So the other thing that people draw, or a common mistake, is that they will draw the eye and not really, whoops, I lost my train of thought. They draw the eye, but what they'll do is like, they'll draw an eye like this, almond shape, and then they'll draw the iris inside that almond shape. Okay, so if I asked any person on the street to draw an eye, right, they would probably draw an almond shape and an eyeball sitting inside that, right? So if you draw an eye like this eye looks kind of robotic, right? It looks kind of robotic. So don't draw irises. Don't draw irises that sit perfectly within the eye. Okay, because what happens is it looks very robotic. So what you want to do instead is, again, you want to think about the eye as a 3D shape, right? And then doesn't matter which direction the eye is turning in, you can wrap your eyelids around that sphere, right? Like say the eye is facing up a little bit, right? Just like this example here, number 4, right? She's kind of, she's kind of got her eyes are a little bit squinting up, right? She's looking up. So one is to draw the ball, and then the second is to actually remember that irises are usually covered, like they're usually covered, right? So if you imagine the top and the bottom of the iris, the eyelid usually cover some of the iris, unless really surprised. Okay, so unless somebody is really, really surprised, the eyelid almost always, like I would say like 90% of the time, the iris is covered by the eyelid, right? And so if you think of the eyeball as a 3D shape, think about how the skin on top of the eyeball is sort of sitting across the sphere, right? It's kind of following the sphere. So if you think about a sphere kind of like this, think about the lines kind of going like this, or the perspective, right? So the eye will follow one of these lines. So Quinn was asking, how do you draw an eye that's closed? Well, you choose a line that represents the direction of the head, and then you draw a line like this, right? And then you can kind of just like draw in the eyelashes, and you got yourself a closed eye. So it's really, really important to visualize the sphere. All right. Are we going to be drawing eyebrows too? Absolutely. Absolutely. Eyebrows are totally, you'll notice I included them all in here. Eyebrows are also part of the eyes. So not only do you want to draw, you know, both of the eyes at the same time, you also want to draw the eyebrows at the same time. So, Like an Art says, I'm putting away too much detail in a phone that's just going to be covered up. You know what? If you put in a lot of detail, like it's okay. I would just say save the detail for last, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to, you know, draw a perfect eye with lots of detail and then draw the other eye and then have to erase the first eye because you made it too high, right? So you want to save the details for last. That's kind of the basis of my GSL method, is saving the line art till you've figured out the structure, you figured out the perspective, and all of that. All of the important stuff that we don't want to draw because we want to draw the line art. Quinn says, I also tend to have trouble with placing the eyes properly in the sockets. I can draw the sockets fine, but I need to study more about all those little planes inside the socket and around the nose. So if you have trouble with that, you really, like, you don't always need to draw the socket. You just want to keep that in mind when you're having trouble with the anatomy. So you can absolutely start by drawing shapes and, you know, using positive and negative shapes, and start with, you know, your alignments and all that stuff. And then if you have trouble, then go deeper into the anatomy, right? Because you don't really have to draw everything from the inside out every single time. All right. Ooh, Kevin, welcome in. Our other amazing mod on Sunday. Thanks for joining us. Imagine drawing really realistic eyes and then doing a really cartoony style on everything else. Well, you know what? Today we're going to be focusing on realism and getting a really good likeness. That's sort of, so my specialty is portraiture and figure drawing. I get commissioned to do a lot of portraits, so likeness is really my strength. I was watching Jessie's stream on expressions, and she was saying that she's an awesome cartoon artist, and you know, she was saying that she struggles with likeness, but not as cartoon versions, but realistic versions. And I'm the opposite. I struggle with getting a good cartoon likeness, but not a but I don't struggle with realism at all. Are you going to do this with other art styles? So if you know how to draw eyes realistically, other art styles are easy because it's very easily translatable, right? So I think you have to kind of start with the foundation. So, you know, if you're a cartoon artist, you don't want to be like, oh, I just want to draw cartoons. Like, I don't want to study the fundamentals. Well, let me tell you that most anime artists, especially like really successful anime manga artists, like in Japan, they all have really, really good fundamentals. So, how long will the stream be? About 2 hours. And is number 4 JoJo Siwa? It is! Good guess! Good guess! All right. Okay, so let's see what other don'ts we have. These are also common mistakes. So don't draw eyes. Don't draw eyes using only curved lines. Don't draw eyes using only curved lines. And, you know, this is why, like, when I draw eyes, especially when you want to draw an eye that's like male eyes have more character in them, right? So they're probably better when you draw with angles. So instead of drawing curves like this, I think it's much better to draw eyes that have, you know, more of an more using angles like this, because you can still curve those angles, right? You can still curve them, but when you draw angles, you have a very clear, very clear sort of highest point and lowest point, right? So that when you put them on guidelines, for example, right, you know exactly where they touch on the guidelines, you know exactly sort of where that diagonal is, and you can always curve it later, right? But you know where the peak of that curve is. So what you want to do is you want to draw eyes using angled lines. And then curve them. So there are so many methods of drawing eyes. I know, for example, Iggy will draw one eye and then kind of draw lines across it and then draw the other eye. So it is still drawing both eyes at the same time. It's just starting with one. I draw both of them like at the same time, even the sketching. So Josh will draw eyes using 6 angled lines. So if you look at his stylized anime tutorial, he kind of uses 6 lines. So 3 lines at the top and kind of 3 lines at the bottom, right? Something like that. I will use anywhere between 4 lines and 6 lines, depending on the pose. Okay. So another one is don't draw dark outlines on the bottom lid. Okay, so if I was drawing Rihanna, you can see, oops, I gave it away. But I think you guys know. But if I was drawing Rihanna, number 2 here, right, you can see that she's wearing eye makeup, right? So you can really see that the bottom of her eye is dark. But most eyes are, they look better when you don't draw the bottom lid as much, but you suggest the bottom lid, right? So you can see that I always draw the top eyelid a little bit darker because, you know, that's where all the lashes go, right? And then for the bottom lid, I use a very light line, or, you know, I'll make the ends of it a little bit darker. But as soon as you draw, and I see a lot of people will draw like a dark line on the bottom, and that just makes it look a little less realistic, right? It just makes them look like they're kind of cartoony, they're less 3D, and I always personally think that suggesting the bottom eyelid is better than drawing it. So suggesting the bottom eyelid is usually better than drawing it completely. So there's a couple other ones that you might want to jot down. These are some really not as important. But for example, if you were drawing an eye like this, and I see a lot of people, they'll kind of draw in the highlights as flat shapes. So they'll draw in the eye and then they draw in a highlight like this, right? Don't draw highlights on eyes. Don't draw highlights on eyes as flat shapes. So why shouldn't you do this? Well, you know, you don't want to do this because your eyeballs are not flat, they are round, right? So this is a no, and alternatively, this one is a yes. So you don't want to draw in flat shapes because it's telling me that the eye is flat like a plate instead of 3D like a ball. Oof, I need a better eraser. Okay, so you can see one of these highlights is very flat and then the other one is a lot more 3D. Okay. Drawing every bump and curve makes it look odd. That's true, Starburst. Okay, so I'm glad to see that you guys are QRZT 2000. I'm glad you think that this stream is a lifesaver. I know a lot of people struggle with drawing eyes, and this is a popular subject, so you know, I wanted to get some of those do's and don'ts in there. Videshi, welcome in. welcome to the stream. Okay. So do some of these tips all depend on the art style? That's a really good question. So generally, I think that they apply to all art styles. Like obviously, if you're doing a super cartoony art style, you may not use like the angles, right? Drawing angles instead of curves. But for the sketching phase, I still think that it's very practical to do that. You lost me on the highlight part. Okay, so basically what I mean is you don't want to draw highlights on eyes as flat shapes. You want to draw highlights as curved shapes along the curve of the sphere. Okay, so along the curve of the eye itself. So let's say I have a big old highlight on this eye, right? And let's use this eye here. So you can see that this is a sphere, right? So if I have a highlight and I'm planning a highlight on this, I would plan it so that it goes this way, right? See how it's curving? Basically like a highlight like this feels more 3D than a highlight like this. Hopefully that's more clear. All right. So there's 6 of these. There's a couple more, just like little tiny ones, but these are the main 6 that I find most people struggle with. And it all comes down to drawing that ball, right? All comes down to drawing that ball. If you struggle with eyelashes, so one of the things about drawing eyelashes is that so don't draw individual lashes for all of the eye. I'm missing a word here. For all of the eye. So unless you're doing like hyper realism, or, you know, somebody's lashes are like they just came out of the water, right? And their lashes are grouped together, kind of clumped, right? I see a lot of people, they'll draw eyes and then they'll be like, okay, I'm going to draw in the lashes. So here I go. I'm going to draw them all in and there, like, there's my final eye. And, you know, they put more lashes on the outside, and, you know, less lashes on the inside. But drawing lashes like this is kind of like drawing hair as individual strands. And we all know that that doesn't go very well, right? So what you want to do is you want to draw the lash line as kind of like a dark shape or tapered line, and then add details. So what I mean by that is, for example, I drew this eye here to kind of demonstrate that the top eyelid is a lot darker and thicker, right? And then the bottom eyelid is almost like not there. So it's very light and suggested, right? So if you look at your own eyes in the mirror, assuming you're not wearing like smoky eye makeup, you'll probably, and you squint at your eye, you'll probably notice that the top lid is a lot darker and thicker than the bottom lid, right? So if you want to draw eyes quickly and efficiently and not struggle so much with lashes, the best thing to do is to draw the lash line as a dark shape, and then you add details after, right? Because all the lashes, essentially your eyelashes, they curve up, but they all group together, right? So it's kind of like this. So when you're looking at eyelashes all grouped together, coming towards you, this type of eyelash is not really realistic. So it's better to kind of draw them in as one line and then add lashes in later, which ends up looking a lot more natural. So for the bottom lashes as well, like I kind of just draw a few of them. So suggested lashes and suggested eyelids are always better than like drawing them out in full detail and outlining them, right? Sometimes being really good at line art is knowing when not to draw lines. So not just knowing how to draw lines, but knowing how not to draw them. Okay. So let's move on to actually studying these eyes by these celebs. Okay. Because I think once we know the things to keep in mind, the common mistakes, it's always helpful to put them in practice. So what I'm gonna do is just split up my page so that I don't run out of space. Split my page into 5. I'm gonna move this down a little bit. Yeah, traditional today, so it's gonna be a bit different. Okay. I think drawing eyes traditionally is just like so fun. Maybe because I was obsessed with it as a teenager. It's very nostalgic for me. There. Okay. You always end up drawing your eyes too wide. That's okay. I think that's okay. I mean, as long as you know, right? Like if you know that you always draw your eyes too wide, then it's kind of like you have the first step. Like you've already identified what it is that you need to work on, right? And that's often the hardest thing, is sort of knowing what it is you need to work on. Okay, so let's start with the first one. So if I'm actually trying to draw in the eye sockets, just a second, I'm just gonna pull up a larger reference because I'm looking at my screen and it's like so small. Faye, were you the kid with the fancy eyes drawn everywhere? I really wanted to find my drawing from high school to show you guys, but I couldn't find it. My mother saved them somewhere, and I can't find them. But I just remember drawing pages and pages in my sketchbook because it was just, you know, something I was obsessed with as a child. Okay, so celeb number 1, we have Käärijä. Hope I'm saying that right. So in this case, you know, the simplest way I would map this out for myself is the eyebrows, right? Because your eyebrows they sit and interact with your eye socket. So in this case, you know, he's got this very serious look. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw out his eyebrows and sort of figure out where his eye sockets are, right? And then because it's a 3/4 view, you'll notice that a lot of these are 3/4 view because I find that that's kind of like the most appealing angle for a lot of, you know, character drawings, for a lot of portraits. Like that 3D look is definitely this angle, like this 3/4 view angle. And so that's kind of why I chose a lot of these poses or a lot of these examples, right? To be 3/4 view. So I find that's kind of like the most challenging. So you can see what I'm starting to do is draw in both of these eyes together. And obviously, if you're drawing it on a face, right, you want to place the eyes or the line of the eyes on the face first, right? Sometimes I'll just draw one line through the middle, and then other times I will draw like a line for the top and a line for the bottom. It really depends on who I am drawing. So in this case, you can tell that he's looking down a little bit, right? Maybe the bangs give it away a little bit, right? But the midline is kind of going this way, right? So you just want to make sure that the corners of his eye are in the same place. And you can see a lot of the corner of this eye, right? So you can kind of see that the eyeball is actually here, because you can see a lot of this, the gooey eye socket in the corner. By the way, the corner of the eyes on the inside is shaped like a letter C. Okay, on the other side, it's obviously not a C, but it's the opposite. But it's like this semicircle. That's a giveaway of the eye, like, you know that if you see this C, that you're looking at an eye from the inside, right? The inside corner. Whereas like if you look at the outer corner of his eye, right, you can kind of see it looks like a Y, like this upper eyelid overlaps the lower eyelid here, right? So it kind of looks like the letter Y, and you can see the angle here, right? So I'm just kind of slowly sketching it all out. And I'll probably need to move his eyebrows a lot closer, especially for poses like this where it's very serious and somebody's got their head tilted down but they're looking up, right? A lot of the eye is covered by the eyebrow. I would say it's more common for males than for females. For a lot of females, especially in stylized drawings, a lot of female eyes will have like very wide distances between the between the eyebrow and the eye. So the next thing I'm looking for is to make sure that the eyes are looking in the right direction, or both eyes are looking in the same direction. So a lot of people will have trouble with this, right? So that's kind of why, like, my solution to making sure that you're drawing the eyes in the same direction is really just to draw them together, right? If you draw them together, you can already see at this point what needs to be changed. So if I'm looking at my drawing and I'm looking at the reference, I can see that I need to make the eyebrows closer to the eyes, and I probably need to make the eyes a little bit more narrow, but generally they're looking in the right direction. The other thing you want to look for is sort of the negative space. So if the iris is positive space, right? The iris including the pupil, if the iris is positive space, then the white of the eye is negative space, right? So my negative space here looks somewhat similar in size to my positive shape, right? Same thing on the other side. So just kind of want to keep that in mind. The highlights will also be in the same place, right? Usually whatever is highlighted on one eye is in the other eye, unless there's like a very dramatic shadow happening. So what I'm going to do now is just sort of move the corners of the eye up a little bit, because I kind of drew them a little bit too wide. Is it okay if I end up stylizing them by accident? Absolutely. Draw whatever you desire. My focus here is just kind of capturing a good likeness and making sure that we recognize them. We recognize these celebrities in my final drawing. That's my goal. It's funny because like I used to love The Simpsons. I used to love watching The Simpsons. I'd watch it every day when I came home from school and like around dinner time and like before and after dinner. And I just loved how The Simpsons are able to draw celebrities in their style. And it's like such an exaggerated style, but it would still look like that celebrity. And I just like, I always thought that that was really, really cool. So if you want to get really good at stylization, you can kind of choose a style that you like and try to draw famous people in that style. That was actually one of our class projects for stylization. Okay, so what I usually do is I will color in the irises and the pupil first. Okay, because if you don't color in the pupil first, then it's really hard to judge your other values, right? And when it comes to shading irises, generally speaking, they're shaded, like irises have these radial lines, right? And generally, I kind of just put them in when I shade the eye, right? So I'll go in this radial fashion. He's got blue eyes. They're pretty dark in this picture, but if I want to maintain the blue, then I just leave this shading pretty light. And then I usually go a little bit darker around the outside. Yeah, Kevin says, and they're so iconic. I know, it's great. I would always, that was like one of the things that I really, that I really loved about just like a TV series that would go on for a really long time is that, you know, eventually they would feature other, you know, celebs and have guests, and then they would have to animate them and turn them into characters, and I always thought that was really fun. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is just focus on shading in the corner of the eye. So the corner of the eye, if you only have black and white, then you can just like add a little bit of shading to it in the corner. But I wouldn't worry so much about all the details, right? Again, the power of suggestion is unbeatable. Like, have you ever gone to a museum and like looked at a famous piece of art? I'm thinking specifically like realism, right? And you look at it up close and it's just like a mess. It's a mess. Like the brushstrokes are everywhere. It looks like the artist just kind of slapped it on. But when you back away from it, it looks so realistic, and you're like, how did they do that? Especially with like impressionism styles or like the post-impressionist. I'm thinking specifically of like artists who are really good at capturing realism without rendering it to be super, super detailed. Like I'm thinking about artists like Sargent, really. Like when I looked at his pieces, I just can't believe how rough they are. But then when you back away from it, it just looks super realistic. Looks like a photograph. And that's all the power of suggestion. So if you want to get a really good likeness, what you want to do is just look for what makes that person unique, right? What makes this person's eye, or it could be their expression, it could be their eye shape. You know, what makes them super unique, and then just focus on making that part really, really clear. Faye Simpson portrait? I have a Faye Simpson portrait. I do. I have one. I'll post it on the Discord. If you remind me, I'll post it on the Discord. I did one for a class project before, and I quite liked it. It did look like me. Like, legit, that was one of my favorite class projects. Because I could do, like, avatars of myself in different styles. Also really fun. So you'll notice that his eyes just kind of blend in with his eyebrows. And I noticed I made his, like, this eye a little bit too wide, so it's affecting his likeness. So I'm going to adjust that. Too bad I don't have a transform tool here. But yeah, if you're drawing along with me, definitely share it on socials and tag at Wing Canvas. Tag us at Wing Canvas so we can share your lovely creations and cheer you on. So especially if you're drawing males and like they have a lot of lashes. First of all, I'm always jealous of guys who have lots of lashes because I'm like, why didn't I get them? They're wasted. Anyway, whenever a guy has like really long lashes, if you emphasize that, it can tend to make them look a bit more feminine, right? So instead of emphasizing their lashes, it's probably better to suggest them with just like a couple lines or a thick line, right? So I'm not really going to draw in his bottom lashes or not be too bothered by that. He's got these really, really subtle frown lines here. Gwen says I look at mine and I'm like, hey, I like these. And I look up at the screen and dang. Well, you know, I think I just have more time on you, but as long as you're drawing and having fun, you're on your way, you know? The other question I get a lot is like, how do I draw, like, should I be drawing the bags under the eyes? Should I draw the under eye circles or not? Because let's face it, everybody has under eye circles. You know, there's like $1 billion industry with eye cream to fix that. Eye creams, eye concealers, you know, all that stuff. But do you draw it or do you not draw it? Like, ultimately, that is up to the creator, right? That's up to the artist who's drawing to decide that. Typically I will not draw it if I'm drawing somebody who's young, or if I'm drawing like a female character, or if I want to be flattering, you know. Like I drew a portrait once and I made it was a portrait of a family, and I struggled a lot with one of the subjects. It was the mom. Like the other subjects were super easy, but the mom I really, really struggled with. And then I finally got a really good likeness, and she was like, do I really have that many wrinkles? I was like, oh no. Oh no. You know, so sometimes like for if I'm drawing males and I'm drawing kind of like an expression that is either like serious or mean or tired or angry, you know, I can draw in some of the under eye circles. But even then, I keep it kind of light, right? They're definitely not the focus. But if I'm drawing somebody older, like if I'm drawing Walter White, for example, or if I'm drawing Mother Teresa, right, I would put in those lines. So it's definitely up to you and whatever you think is best for your subject. Okay. All right, so next I will be drawing Rihanna. Rihanna is our mystery subject number 2. So in my opinion, I really like Rihanna, not just her music, but I wanted to draw I wanted to focus on her eyes that have this kind of glittery makeup, and also it's kind of like a tough angle, right? So is number 5 Simu Liu? It is. Yes. Good detective skills. Let's see if people can tell who that is in my final drawing, then I'll actually pass the test. Okay. So with Rihanna, if I'm gonna sketch out her eye, like I would probably sketch out like the overall eye shape, including the fold. And then kind of draw in the top eyelid. You can see that the fold is pretty thick, right? Like the height of the fold of the eye is pretty important in terms of capturing a good likeness. You'll also notice that most of her iris is hidden, like the top half is pretty much hidden. As well as I would say like a sliver of the bottom or like a quarter of the bottom, right? So here I've kind of sketched out one eye. I know where the corners are, so I would find the other corner. Usually the width or the distance between the eyes is the same width as the eye itself. This holds true in most cases. Even 3/4 view. Obviously not profile because you only see one eye. But generally speaking, you want to find this distance by finding this distance first, right? And then if you observe that that person's eyes are wider apart or kind of closer together, then that's when you exaggerate that, right? So if somebody's eyes are further apart than average, right? You probably want to emphasize that if you're going for likeness. Okay, so in this case, you can kind of see the eye socket, right? You can see how like her eyes kind of puffy up here, right? And then you can kind of see a little bit of the eye socket in here, right? You see where it gets really dark right here. Part of that's makeup, but that's also where her eye socket is going in, like her eyes curving around it, and this part is much darker, right? So as long as you can visualize it, you don't really need to draw it necessarily, but if you're having trouble, you might want to look at a skull and figure that out. And sometimes, like if you're drawing really old people, the eye sockets are so visible, right? So if you see the eye sockets and they're very obvious, then draw that first, right? There's hundreds of methods for drawing the same thing. It's the lovely thing about art. It's not like math. There's like many, many ways to problem solve when you're a creative. and many different ways of achieving the same thing. Right? You just want to know what you are focused on. Like, are you focused on structure? Then, you know, if you're focused on structure, then obviously draw in the anatomy, draw in those lines. That's going to help you with aligning everything. I usually focus on structure first before the, you know, like the line art and all those details. And if you're focused on getting a good likeness, right, then you'll need to shift your focus to looking at, you know, exaggerating certain qualities or emphasizing certain qualities about that person, like the like how thick their eyelid, their fold is above the eyelid and things like that. So again, most people said that they struggle with drawing eyes together at the same time and eyes in difficult angles, and this is probably one of the trickiest. Is a 3/4 view angle. So you'll notice that she kind of has a lot of highlights on her eyes, and if you wanted to simplify that, you can do whatever you want for the highlights, which is really nice, right? So I'm gonna draw two shapes, but I'm gonna make them both curved to just kind of highlight what we talked about in the do's and don'ts, is to keep your highlights round, or to keep that shape round so that it doesn't feel like the eye is flat. So I shouldn't say round as in a circle, I just mean like curved. So if you're gonna draw a rectangle, right, draw a curved rectangle. And sparkly eyeshadow. See, I should have probably chose this one to draw on toned paper, because I could just do the sparkles fairly easily, but I didn't. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do the sparkles yet. So at this point, you kind of want to look at your drawing and be like, does it look like the person? Right? Like, do I have a good likeness? If you don't have a good likeness at this point, don't keep going. Make your adjustments now. I mean, I suppose if you're working digitally, it's a lot easier because you can just scooch it over with like the liquify tool or something, right? But with traditional, it's a lot harder. And you'll notice that with Rihanna, like the corners of her eyes are not like really, really, that C shape is not super obvious. It's more like a V shape. My eyes are also like this, like the corners are not super round, they're more kind of pointy. So know the rules and kind of be aware of when they don't apply or they can be broken. Okay, so typically speaking, I will always, if you notice, I always kind of draw the eyes in a particular in a particular order. Like I'll draw the shape of the eye, and then once I've finished that, I'll draw in like the upper lid, make that a little bit thicker, and then I'll draw in the iris, and then I color in the pupil. So have a look at this corner here. So you can see that the corner of the eye actually wraps around. It's actually hard to see in the reference picture. But again, like if your eyeball, so her eyeball is like in here, right? Inside the socket behind the nose. You'll see that when you draw in the eyelid, it's got to wrap around that eye, right? Both the top and the bottom eyelid has to wrap around the eye. Otherwise, it doesn't look 3D. So she's wearing that smoky eye makeup, so I'm just gonna color it in just to kind of capture the essence of it. So one tip I didn't actually include today in the beginning when we were doing the lesson part is I see it doesn't really apply if you're drawing like just line art, but if you're actually shading in the eye, like a lot of times I will see people leave the eyes very white. Like they'll be like, okay, you know, eyeballs are white, so I'm going to leave the eyeballs the white of the paper. And even though that's like a correct assumption, usually eyeballs are not white at all. They're actually more like the same value as the skin itself. And the only really white part is in the highlights of the eye, right? So if you compare the highlight white to the actual white, it appears a lot more gray, especially like right under the lash line, right? There's usually a bit of a shadow. So drawing in that shadow will make the eye look a lot more realistic. And you'll see this shadow represented in anime, right? When you see the shading on anime eyes, like they generally have a gray or a darker value right underneath the eyelids. So also helpful to keep in mind. So you can see, like, I did draw individual lashes, but I started by drawing in a thick line instead. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shading. Do I want to draw sparkles? I'll draw some speckles, but I don't want them to really be too much of the focus here. Okay, so now you can't get the eyebrows right. Okay, so what are you struggling with the eyebrows? Is it the angle of the eyebrows? Eyebrows are hard, right? Because like they have so much to do with the eye itself. And they really frame the face. So they are definitely important. Love the sparkles. Thank you. I had to figure out like how to do it with pencil. Okay, so you can see like you really can't see the lashes on the other side, so I'm just gonna have to make it up. I'm just gonna try my best to make it up. But most of it is kind of grouped together. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just draw in the dark sort of grouping of the lashes, right? So even if I left it like that, like it already looks like she's got lashes, I don't really need to draw all of them. Right? And then when you do go to draw the lashes, they all just kind of blend in nicely. So there we go. I'm gonna put in the shadow under her eye. It's either too low or too high. That's usually how it is, right? Yeah, if the eyebrows are usually too low or too high, that's okay. You can adjust them. Are you drawing digitally or traditionally? I'm sure lots of people can relate to your struggles. Okay, so for the eyelash, for the eyebrows, I'm basically just gonna put in a very light flat shading first. So any ladies in the chat use eyebrow pencils or something to fill in their eyebrows. Let me know what you use, if you use eyebrow pencil or if you use eyeshadow. This is probably, you know, while this may not really be something that, you know, guys typically experience, if you fill in your eyebrows, I've found, this is just a side note for fun, if you want to draw very natural eyebrows on your own face, right, consider using eyeshadow. Because eyeshadow, it's kind of like how I drew this, right? It feels very soft, and then it helps blend all of the hairs together. Whereas like eyebrow pencil, I find it works, but I have to smudge it a little bit, and it's not always the best. So it's kind of the same thing when I'm drawing eyebrows. Typically, I will shade them in lightly and like a flat shape, and then I'll draw the hair on top of it. So just like I would be drawing my own eyebrow or filling my own eyebrows in if I want them to be a little bit more pronounced. And then now they have these eyebrow pencils that kind of draw a few strokes at the same time. I ended up buying one from an Instagram ad and it was horrible. It's so horrible. Let me show you actually. It's like, it looks like this. Right? So if I'm drawing it out on a piece of paper, I have to show you guys because it looks so good in the ad, but then like maybe I drew the wrong color, but like it draws these perfect lines and it just looks really, really unnatural. So maybe I didn't draw the best, or I didn't pick the best one. I kind of just bought one to try, but I was very disappointed. It's a good idea, but it just goes to show, and I kind of said to myself, I knew it, like I knew that it was too good to be true because eyebrows don't actually grow evenly like that. So I should have known better. A rake brush, yeah. Yeah. They're like, it's supposed to look natural. Didn't look natural at all. Okay. Let's see. Who do we have next? Next, we're gonna draw... I don't know if you guys guessed who this next guy is, but it's Mads Mikkelsen. Very, very interesting face. He plays a super good villain. Like, just a really, really very interesting face, right? Here you can really see his eye sockets. Like, there, you see these angles, like I'm really exaggerating them. But in this case, I can see his eye socket. So I'm kind of penciling it in. as very exaggerated shapes, because it's always better to, you know, exaggerate shapes more than less, right? Because you can always like calm it down, dial it back a bit, but it's harder to push it. It's easier to kind of pull back. So again, sketching out the shape of the eye, making sure that the corners are kind of in the same place. I actually find it a lot easier to draw eyes not on a face. I was kind of deliberating whether I should draw an entire face or not, but decided to just focus on the eyes. So again, I made his eyes a little bit too long. And I feel like it's pretty common. And he doesn't really have your typical eyebrow. His eyebrows are very light. So like kind of like not even there. So I did draw them a little bit longer. So now I'm like, oh no, I drew it a little bit longer, so I have to adjust this side of the face. He's got such a interesting and very like unique face, very unique features. These kind of sunken in sockets, like really, really dark eye sockets. Right, they're almost all dark. So if you squint at it, you'll see that they're almost all in shadow. You got the eyebrows down? Awesome. That's great. I knew you'd get it. Hearthling says, totally makes sense. Do you think adding more highlights, reflections adds any kind of emotion to a character? Definitely. And I think you can have a lot of fun with it too. Like you can have a lot of fun adding different shapes and like exaggerating the eye. I'm putting all kinds of like funky things in the highlights, like dollar signs and hearts and all that stuff. I'm picturing like Looney Tunes type of style of animation and cartoons. Okay, so his eyes are like super dark. So I'm not even going to bother drawing the iris. And you can see he's just kind of got one lash there. And then it gets really dark up here. I always find it like really challenging when the eye is merging with the eyebrow. Because you're just like, wait, where does it end and where does the other one begin? I find that really, really tough. Like in this case, you know, he's got, I really want to emphasize these really dark eye sockets. He's got kind of the European hooded eye. I know we made a video a while ago about sort of European versus Asian eyes. And European eyes tend to have like the thicker hoods, the wider folds, whereas Asian eyes, this is generally speaking, usually have like not as wide lids, hooded lids. Although I have to say, like, I've traveled to China a few times, and there are Chinese, there's a portion of the Chinese population that also has these like very European looking eyes. They're like more in the northwest, where it's like closer to the Middle East. You've got like, you know, more sort of Persian, Asian mixed minorities, right? They typically have very different looking, more kind of European type of eye structure. So it really depends. Everything's kind of like a generalization, right? All rules in art are just like a generalization. So take it with a grain of salt. And just remember, nothing is always gonna 100% follow those rules. You just kind of want to study your reference and decide what you want to do accordingly. Right? Always think about what rules you can break too. All right. I want to keep going here, but I feel like this is probably close enough. I mean, I feel like this eye, I've done a bit of erasing, so if I keep going, I might mess up the paper. Hey, welcome in, Masa. Nice to see you. And I'm glad the timing works out. It's awesome. So when I just actually finished teaching figure drawing in our summer intensives, and we'll actually be running that again. But one of the biggest joys in my life is definitely teaching, and it's like so rewarding to see my students improve and do just amazing work. It's like, it's so satisfying. It's like one of the best things about being a teacher. So I love hearing when people are proud of their artwork or they surprise themselves. That's always like the most rewarding thing for me. All right. I'm kind of looking at the reference and thinking like, oh, there's so much else. There's so much more I want to do. I want to do a lot more shading, but I also want to draw Walter White, so we gotta keep going. So I'm actually going to be teaching drawing foundations. We're switching it up a little bit. Josh was teaching drawing foundations last term. I'm teaching it this term because I really want to focus on helping people with their realism especially people who are great at cartoons, right? At drawing cartoons, but they struggle with their realism, their proportions, their anatomy. So yeah, I'll be teaching drawing foundations in the evening. So it's Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So the difference between our live classes and the live streams is that the live classes are limited to 12 people. And you get feedback from me. So you get draw overs, personal support, even on personal projects. So a lot of my students will say, hey, this is what I'm doing today. And you know, I give them personal feedback. You can ask me basically anything, even career advice. I do a lot of that as well. I recently helped a student with their first art show, and it was a huge success, which was super, super rewarding for me as well. So career advice, general advice, what should I work on? What should I improve on? Those are things that, you know, you really need a professional to help you with. Like a lot of things you can learn on your own, but there's just so much value to getting feedback. Okay, so we're going to be drawing JoJo here, JoJo Siwa. I actually have never heard of her, but this was a request from our poll. So I thought that it would be fun to draw some new people that I've never heard of before. In this case, I felt like her eyebrows would be the easiest to start with, especially because it's kind of at this angle. And then you'll see how far away her eyes are from her eyebrows. She's young, right? She's got a very young looking face, and young people will generally have more space between their eyebrows and their eyes. And she's got this like super surprised look, right? Which also tells me that that space is going to be a lot wider. And you can't even see the bridge of her nose. Partially it's because of the lighting, right? It's this very kind of glamour shot lighting where you can't really see any structure. There's no wrinkles visible. So the the lighting is super flattering, but you don't really see the structure. You don't really see her nose that much. But what you can see is that the eyes, like if you look at the curve of the bottom of her eyes, right, you can see that it's curving up and it's not really curving down like we normally see eyes doing. And that's why you want to imagine the sphere, right? And like the lines that go across the sphere. So you want to always, like, don't just assume that the bottom lid is always going to curve down, because sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the view. And like I drew in this eye, but you can see, I drew in the iris, sorry, but you can see like the white of her eyes is a lot bigger in shape and size. It's a lot bigger in size than her iris, right? So you want to make sure that you capture that. And like look at how much of it is covered as well. So this one's going to be a little bit more challenging. So you just want to make sure that the corners of the eyes line up. It doesn't matter if you're stylizing it or if you're drawing it realistically. You want to make sure that these lines are all sitting on the same plane. I can see that her eyes are a little bit further apart than how I drew them. So I'm just gonna make this one a little bit smaller. Typically the eye on the other side of the face So there's one eye that's easy to draw and then one eye that's hard to draw, right? The eye that's harder to draw is usually the eye that's more compressed. So in this case, it's the eye on the other side of the nose. And you'll really see like how thick and dark that line is of her lashes, right? It's really thick, really dark. But I find it's always better to group the lashes first before calling out the individual ones. So the main thing here is just to make sure that the bottom of the eye is kind of curving this way, right? Even though it looks like it's not. Right, it's curving. It usually curves the other way. So we always have an idea of what something looks like when we think about it, but then when we observe, it's usually pretty different. So anyway, if you're interested in our classes and our live weekly classes, if you're in a different time zone than us, you can also take the recorded learning. So the recorded learning we introduced a year ago. It's called RLO. And basically it allows you to learn on your own time with recording. So we record the classes live, and sometimes we will curate older recordings that are still really valuable, like the lessons, most of the core lessons we've recorded many times. So we'll give you the best version. And the recorded learning option allows you to sort of, you know, if you're somebody who can't really carve out an hour and a half every week, because most of our classes are an hour and a half, some of them are 2 hours. If you can't carve out that time, then you can watch the recording in bits and pieces, whatever works for you. And then you can submit your artwork. So we use Google Classrooms, and it's very easy for you to submit your artwork and chat with your instructor. If you have any questions and you've got like a week to do the work and get feedback on your submitted artwork, that has been working. We've gotten like really good feedback on the RLO. And it just allows us to work with, whoops, it allows us to work with people from all parts of the world. So that has been really, really cool. Yeah, the most important thing that you get from the paid classes, because we are happy to stream classes for you guys for free every weekend, you know, but the paid classes give you that support and gives you custom feedback on your artwork, which is essential to your growth. You can save tons of time by just talking to an expert, right? Getting feedback. Picking our brains. One note about eyebrows is that the hairs will kind of turn, right? So if you look at the corners of the eyebrows, right? The corners of the eyebrows, the hair kind of starts out this way and then it starts to turn and then it starts to turn horizontally, and then by the time it gets to the end, it's curving this way, right? So it's important to notice that the change of direction in the eyebrows as well as the eyelashes. Okay. I probably could have exaggerated her eyebrows even more, like made them even higher, right? But again, I do want to move on. Okay. Question, my sketches usually get really messy and I can't see a lot of details. Do you have any tips on having cleaner sketches? Yes, use sharper pencils. Unless you're talking about digital. But cleaner sketches, I would say try to draw lightly at first and try to use your whole arm when you draw instead of just kind of drawing with your hand, right? You want to try to draw with your entire arm. For some reason, when you draw with your entire arm, your lines just get more, they're straighter, they're more confident looking, right? So like this, you see that my wrist is not moving, right? When I'm doing this, my wrist isn't moving. But if I'm always drawing like this, right, you can see that my lines are a lot more limited. So try drawing with your arm, or sketching with your arm. Like when you're drawing details, you will need to use your wrists. And having cleaner sketches, I think it's a combination of practice. The more you practice, the more confident you get at sketching in general. So it just comes with time. Okay, so the reason why I chose the last one, so this is Simu Liu. He's a Canadian actor, I think Canadian, Korean. He was on CBC in Canada on a show about a convenience store called Kim's Convenience. It was a really good show. Anyway, so that's kind of where I first saw him, and now he's like in Marvel movies. It's crazy. So I wanted to draw this particular picture because he's wearing glasses. So one for two reasons. One is he's got hooded eyes. So somebody in the chat said, please, I have trouble drawing hooded eyes. Please help. So that's why he's here. He's representing glasses and hooded eyes. He's got this kind of, this very curious looking, these like, they're not exactly octagons, but these weird glasses that are like a little bit too small for his face. But whenever somebody's wearing these like really, really dark frames, it kind of takes over their face. And so when you're drawing somebody with glasses, right? If the glasses are really bold, in this case, they're black, and you can't even, like, it's hard to even imagine his face without glasses at this point because they're so dominant, right? Then I would draw the glasses first, right? If you're drawing somebody and their glasses are like clear or they have thin frames, then I would draw the eyes first. I wouldn't even I would treat the glasses like glass, like a transparent thing that you draw on top of it. So the question that I get a lot is, should I draw the glasses first or should I draw the eyes first? And I say, it depends. It depends on what is more dominant and what's going to help you the most. Okay, so in this case, if I didn't draw his glasses, I wouldn't even, like, they're so disruptive on his face that I feel like drawing them makes my life easier, because then I can just use the negative space within the frames to place his eyes. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is draw in these glasses. I'm just gonna try my best to draw the shapes. They would call these types of glasses a statement piece. Okay, and then generally speaking, in a 3/4 view, you just want to make sure that this frame is a little bit less wide than this frame. In the image, it's kind of hard to tell. Like, I'm using my pencil to really measure it out. And this distance is equal to this distance. So if I measure out this distance, I eyeballed it pretty good. You're running out of room on your page. That's a good thing. Okay, so then the next thing is, if it helps you, you can kind of draw a grid, right? Like a grid or something on your glasses so that it helps you place the eyes in the right place. So for Simu, I can kind of see that his eyes fit in the upper half of his glasses, right? Another common mistake I see people make is they'll draw glasses and then they'll assume that the eyes are in the middle of the glasses, right? They draw glasses and they're like, okay, put the eyes right in the middle. But that's not usually the case. Usually speaking, the eyes are not in the middle of the glasses. And it's important to kind of notice that. And place them correctly. So you can see this corner is very close, and then this corner is kind of far away. Right? And then this corner is kind of overlapping. And even though his eyes are very curved, I'm still drawing them as angles. I'm still using angles to draw them. So hooded eyes don't really have the fold at the top. So you can just like draw the eye as you would, but disregard the hood or disregard the crease, basically. And usually hooded eyes, if you're drawing hooded eyes with lashes, the lashes usually point straight down. It's because unless your eyelids fold, your lashes don't actually flip up, right? And they don't actually lip up as much. So it's very rare to see hooded eyelids with like very curved or lashes, unless somebody's, you know, permed their lashes or curled their lashes. But sometimes you'll see hooded eyelid, like you'll see hooded eyes with lashes if the skin on the top, so like you can see, for example, if I take her eye as an example, right? This is a fold, but sometimes as people age, this part of the eye above the fold sort of sags, right? And it kind of hides this fold. So it touches the lash line. And when that happens, you will see the eyelashes kind of curving out, even though it's a hooded eye. I know that was very technical, so hopefully that made sense. Okay, so I'm not really gonna color in his glasses, but I will put in his eyebrows. Oh, Quinn, don't worry. I'm going to be drawing Walter on his own page. And after these studies, I'm going to draw in the Prismacolor. So I'm going to do like a tonal drawing, which actually might be faster because I don't have to shade everything. So in other words, hooded eyes are very easy to draw because you don't really need to emphasize the lashes and you don't really need to emphasize the folds. And usually on like eyes that are hooded, typically speaking, you know, some people say it's harder, but I actually think it's easier. Might just be a little bit different in the beginning. So you can also see some of his eyebrows kind of dip into the glasses. So there you go. I think it's a lot easier personally to draw the glasses first in this case. But I think with Walter White, we're going to do the opposite. So you'll get to see both. All right. Somebody's excited. I'm glad. All right. Well, that was 5 studies, people. That was pretty good, I think. We've made pretty good time. So I actually only have, the stream usually goes till 5, but I think I might need a bit more time. Hopefully not too much. So now we're gonna go and draw on gray paper. Let's see here. Okay, so we're gonna do Walter. So this like deadpan, very serious look with glasses. All right. Okay, so this is gonna be our last one. So in this case, this is just a face that's sort of front on, but his face is tilting this way, right? You can tell because if you look at the tip of his ears, they're a lot higher on his head, right? So if you see where his glasses connect, right, where they hook onto his face, those are his ears. Those are the tops of his ears. So if you want to draw in the glasses, right, and use that as a way of framing his face, it also helps you with figuring out the direction of his face. So kind of like this. Right? Kind of like in a box. Actually, I'm going to move this over a bit. Okay. So with his face, like I can really, if I squint at it, I can kind of see the eyebrows are making this like top heavy line that is very angry looking, right? So I'm probably going to draw that first. When you're drawing on toned paper, you don't actually need to draw all of the midtones. It actually saves you a lot of time. So you can see that his glasses are sort of overlapping. They're like sort of in between the eyebrow and the eye, right? So even though I didn't think I would draw the glasses first in this case, I feel like I should at least draw in the top because it goes in between the eye and the eyebrow. And it's fairly flat, right? So I can kind of put that in first. And just want to make sure that they're roughly the same size. So although his glasses don't really disrupt his face as much as Simu's did, they still really help frame the face. And they help with his likeness. So knowing where they are will help me place the eyes. So in this case, I'm not going to draw them out completely, but I will place them in as a sketch. I know this expression is so good. Right? I know. This is like what he's gonna be famous for, like this look. Oops, I made that too high. So basically, I'm just trying to draw in the frame of his face, or the frame of his eyes in this case. Because even looking at the, what do you call this? The side of the glasses. What? I'm at a loss for words right now. The part that hooks around your ears. What's the term for the part that hooks around your ears on glasses? I don't wear glasses, so I can't even. I know there's a word for it. The legs? I don't know. Is that what they're called? The arms? Okay. So the arms of the glasses. Thanks for sticking around, Kolfer. Have a good lunch. Okay, we're going to call it the arms. So the arms of the glasses, because they're tilting up, it's telling me that he's facing down. Okay, this is a visual cue to kind of tell you which direction the head is facing. I'm going to put in some white highlights here on the glasses. And now let's put in the eyes. So notice how close the eyes are to the glasses, right? They're like, if I split this into 3 sections, they're like in the top third section, right? So they gotta be really, really high up there. And I'm just drawing with colored pencils because just for the sake of time here. But normally I would say sketch this out in pencil and then move to colored pencil when you're doing your final line art. So let's hope this goes well. I think I made the glasses a little bit close together, so his eyes are a little bit close together. And because I kind of sketched them out at the same time, I can see that, right? I can now see that they're too close together. Actually, if I measure the middle of them, yeah, they're a little bit too close. But you can really see how dark the corners of his eyes get, right? First of all, they're in shadow. And second of all, like it adds to the drama or the dramatic nature of this expression. And he's quite old, right? Okay, maybe he's not that old, but like he's got all the wrinkles and the, let's say he's middle-aged. But if I was to exaggerate these eyes, I would kind of draw them like this. Like as a cartoon, I would draw them like this. Right? Because they're actually, like, if this is the ball, right? They're actually curving this way along the ball. Okay? But the tops of his eyes here look very, very straight. But his eyeballs are round underneath it. And so, like, he's got hooded eyes as well, but it's not from... it's not because of his ethnicity, really. It's because of his age and the angle that you're seeing it in. Thanks, guys. Quinn says, according to Google, they're called temples or arms. I had no idea they were called temples. Like, if you told me, oh, you know, just open the temples or like move the temples of the glasses, I would have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only person who had no idea what the anatomy of glasses are called. I just know the lens and the frames. But I learned something new today. Thanks, Quinn. Hope your drawing is turning out nicely. Okay, so I'm just gonna go really dark in the corners here. And now what I'm doing is I'm kind of squinting and drawing in his eyebrows. Just giving a little bit of texture to his eyebrows. So I know it's back to school, guys. Any of you guys going back to school? I see that all the art materials are on sale right now. And if you're looking to actually take an art class with us, now is the best time to sign up, because if you miss the early bird, so here's a tip. We do an early bird sale for every program, and you can basically save 5% on top of everything. Like it's a promo code. So you save 5% on top of the full term discount. So the full term discount is 15%, and you get the 15% off if you sign up before the first class of the term. So if you sign up for the full term, which we recommend, because, you know, 1 or 2 classes is good if that's all you can afford, but full term, really, you really see the difference when you're consistent and you get consistent feedback. So the full term discount is 15% off, and that's automatically taken at registration. It's like automatically taken off your bill. So that's a really, really good opportunity to invest in your creative skills and growing your skills, becoming the artist you were meant to be. You don't need a promo code, you just need to sign up before the first class starts. So our classes start September 14th, I believe. It's a little bit different every term, but definitely check it out if you're thinking about taking classes. You want to sign up before then. And we also have really good support. Like if you miss a class, we send you a recording, but we also give you a call to remind you, because we do have people from all different time zones. And, you know, we forget when the classes are online. Sometimes we just forget. So our incredible team, our admin team is always there to remind you and help support. Okay, it doesn't look like Walter White yet because I don't have the bags under his eyes. Let's get those in. So the first thing I probably want to do is just give it some light shading, because bags are not just lines, right? Bags under the eyes are really, it also is the ball structure, right? So you got to keep that structure in mind. Like if you look at this bag that's coming down here from this eye, that follows the eyeball that's wrapping around the eyeball in the eye socket. You can see the part that I'm shading right now is his eye socket, right? So all of those details in knowing the anatomy, knowing the structure, knowing where the ball is going to come in handy sooner or later. Hey, Emmy Draws, welcome to the stream. You're just gonna catch the tail end of it, but glad you're here. If you are new or you're just kind of lurking, pop in and say hello. Pop into the chat. Again, thank you so much to our amazing patrons who support the channel and allow us to bring these free lessons to you every week. Without you guys, it wouldn't be possible. And also to our amazing students who tell us what you struggle with. You know, it's because of you that we know what most people struggle with when it comes to their art. So we do have a content suggestions channel on our Discord. Definitely join the Discord. And you can add in your content suggestions. So what you want to see on the channel, what you struggle with. You're learning the Loomis method. The Loomis method is good. I know there's like the Riley method and the Loomis method. I always found the Riley method super complicated. Like I don't think it's like, I think the simpler the better. So Loomis method is good. I have my own method. It's called the GSL method. I generally use the Loomis method when it comes to drawing heads, but I try to focus on one thing at a time. So the GSL method incorporates structure and gestures as well. So if you've never heard of that, we do have some videos on the channel that go over all of that stuff. All right. So let me know how you're doing if you're drawing along with me. You can see I didn't really add that much, that many highlights. I kind of just added the white on the glasses and a little bit of highlight at the bottom, and that's it. I did add some highlights on the eyes, but they're like generally so dark that I don't think it adds a lot of value to unintended. It adds a lighter value, but it doesn't really add that much to it. Like, I'm not gonna over highlight if I don't need to. So if you've just joined us or you are new to the channel, we are Winged Canvas, and our mission is to make arts education easily accessible to everyone. And if you didn't know, our growing community is full of art nerds, and we art nerds have to stick together. So if you're an art nerd too, be sure to check out the links in our social media and in the description below. So there's our social media. You can find us at Winged Canvas. And we are not just a YouTube channel, we are a school of illustration. So again, you can find us at wingedcanvas.com and connect with us on the Discord. We are the most active on the Discord itself. And if you want to support the channel and also improve on your art skills, join our Patreon. There's a few Patreon members in the chat. Thank you again for your continued support. But if you support us on Patreon, you can get really cool perks like members only critiques, and you get to see our videos before they're released, as well as monthly live class recordings. And you also get live critiques every week. Every week, a different creator, different specialties. So you can work with Jesse, Iggy, Josh, and myself and get live critique on your artwork in certain tiers. So definitely check that out. Oh, so we did a lot of drawing today. We did, let's see, we did 5 eyes and 1 more detailed pose in a difficult angle. So thanks again for joining, guys. I had a great time, and I hope that you are very happy with your drawings. Definitely share them. Tag us at Winged Canvas. We'd love to see your work. And tomorrow, Josh will be streaming, so don't forget to catch his stream. And the next stream, let's see what I'm doing next here. Let me tell you, this is the last stream in August for me, but in September I will be doing some Studio Ghibli inspired acrylic painting. That'll be really fun. So we haven't released the September streams yet, but do have a look on the channel for them. And hopefully I will see you in class or on the Discord. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.